Hey guys, what's poppin'? Jacques Slade here, and Nike just pulled a fast one on us. They called it one thing, but in reality, this is something else entirely different. For the uninitiated, this is the Nike Space Hippie. Specifically, this is the Nike Space Hippie 01. If you've been paying any attention to the marketing around the shoe, you've probably read the headlines that the shoe is trash. It may even be the title of this video, but the truth of the matter is the shoe is actually much more than that. In fact, the shoe might be a literal gold mine for Nike, but first, let's give it the old unboxing treatment. So obviously, first thing to notice about the shoe is the actual box. Because this is all about sustainability and taking care of the environment, the box that the shoes are shipped in is actually the shoe box as well. Normally, Nike double boxes their shoes in order to make sure they aren't damaged and whatnot during shipping, but with these, that isn't going to be the case. What you see is what you get. In addition to this being the shipping box, they are using a plant-based ink to help lower the overall carbon footprint of the collection. All of the ink is actually used on the inside of the box, and it is like a bunch of different logos about the shoe here, and then on the end you see the information about the shoe. It's pretty cool. You know, I kind of wonder how this strategy is going to affect the resale market. You know, if I buy a pair and I'm going to resell them, do I need to double box it before I send it to you, or do I send it to you like Nike sends it to me? I don't know. Anyway, so they also include a bag in the box, which I didn't expect at all. It feels a lot like a recycled polyester Nike has been using, and I'll dig into that in just a bit as well, because this one might be a game changer. You see here it has the Nike Space Hippie logo with the 01, the 02, and the 03. And speaking of that, I wonder if they were only planning on making 3 Space Hippies at first, and that's why they only go up to 3 instead of 4. I don't know. It's actually like that on the box as well. I'll ask about that and let you guys know what that's all about. Make sure you give me a follow over on Snap, Twitter, or IG under Cousteau, because that's where I'll share the info there instead of making a full video just about something like that. But let's get back to the main event. These are the actual shoes. My first thought is these are super lightweight. The upper isn't as soft as the usual Flyknit, and the outsole feels less dense than what I'm used to when it comes to performance sneakers. These obviously aren't meant for performance, but you know, you kind of get the point. These are a bit different. The lines and the shapes of these is actually really nice. The design team did a really great job of putting together a unique look, I would say, for a sneaker while also making it look familiar. We've kind of entered a world of design that allows things that are less polished or unfinished looking to rise to the top. And when it comes to the Space Hippie, I personally really like how it came out, but there's a lot more to this sneaker than just the good looks. While I was in New York for the original announcement, I actually had a chance to sit down and talk to Noah Murphy Reinhardt. He works on Nike's sustainability team, and technically his title is the NXT Sustainability Leader Expert. I wanted to get more information about the shoes because I honestly feel like a lot of companies use sustainability as a selling point, and this is what he had to say. What does sustainability mean to Nike in the sense of footwear, and like are there like actualized results you guys are seeing from the sustainability efforts that you're making?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a really clear focus on how we approach sustainability. So for Nike, that mission of move to zero, it's really 2 things at its core. It's zero carbon emissions, and zero waste. That's a goal that's way out there.
Right.
But something like this is a direct result where we say, let's look at the carbon emissions it took to make this pair of shoes and let's push that number down. That's really the focus for us, because if we don't have a great climate, we don't have a great place for athletes, we don't have a place for people to set new world records or just go out and play. Like that's the focus. So for us, sustainability, lower carbon, lower waste.
So despite the cool look of the Nike Space Hippie, the bigger story is lowering Nike's carbon footprint, which leads me to a couple of different parts of the shoe. Let's start with the upper, which I think is turning a lot of heads. As I mentioned earlier, the shoe isn't as soft as your traditional Flyknit, and according to Noah, the upper consists of a few different materials which I believe help contribute to the shoe's overall color and stiffness. They actually call it space yarn, and it's made of 25% post-consumer t-shirts, which is essentially used or unsold t-shirts that were going to be thrown away. Another 25% is from textile scrap from the factory. As most of you already know, there tends to be pieces of waste left over when you make certain products, and those pieces are often thrown into the trash. In this instance, Nike is actually taking those discarded parts and keeping them to make new products. And the last 50% is recycled plastic bottles, a strategy that Nike has been using for a while now. Altogether, they equal a process that has a 70% smaller footprint than recycled polyester. We see it a lot with the uniforms and jerseys they've announced over the last few years. It isn't exactly a new method of creating products for Nike, but the other two are really interesting, and I'll jump into the real meaning behind those in just a minute. But first, let's talk about what I think is the most exciting part of the shoe, the midsole and the outsole. Traditionally, Nike uses a combination of TPU or proprietary foam when it comes to impact protection, but with the Space Hippie, they've abandoned that way of thinking and instead created something new they call crater foam. The foam is a blend of past Nike foams mixed with 15% Nike grind. Now, Nike grind is basically leftover soles of Nike shoes ground up together to create a new outsole. So Noah's team took this Nike grind and used it within the Nike crater foam to essentially create something new. The Nike grind is basically used like a filler. In my mind, it isn't necessarily to complete the sneaker, but it does add like another element to help further the sustainability angle from Nike, and it just looks pretty intense if you want to be honest. Each outsole that uses this technique is actually going to have its own unique look, so essentially no two outsoles in the Space Hippie collection will look exactly the same. And on a personal note, again, I just think the outsoles look super slick with the different bits of color. Then they have the textures of the Nike grind in there, and it just adds to the look for me. The final aspect of the sneaker is almost hidden, the cushioning. If you're into running, you have no doubt heard about Nike Zoom X. It's Nike's most efficient technology, and it is worn on the feet of athletes that literally break human barriers. According to the brand, the foam is the lightest, it's the softest, and the most responsive foam that they offer. With the Space Hippie, Nike takes the leftover parts from when the brand makes like the Zoom Fly and the Alpha Fly and compresses those scraps together and basically makes another midsole. It's quite genius when you think about it. That same foam is actually used on the insole as well. So in addition to getting the Zoom X underfoot in the midsole, you get it directly underfoot for the insole as well. On the flip side though, this is a compressed version of the cushioning, so you aren't getting exactly the same sort of responsiveness you would get out of it if it was in its purest form. Nike says the Zoom X and the Alpha Fly has up to an 85% energy return, and I don't think you're going to experience that sort of return in the Space Hippie line, especially considering that these shoes really aren't built for performance anyway, and they're more of a lifestyle offering. On feet, the Space Hippie feels nice. I wouldn't call it any more or less comfortable than your typical shoe made out of Flyknit. One thing you do notice right away though is how light it is. The Nike IU foam they have is super lightweight, so you lose a lot of the weight you would get from like a typical midsole and outsole combination. It reminds me a lot of the feeling you get when you wear like the Nike Ultra series of Flyknit shoes like the Air Max 1. The upper isn't as soft, but the weight distribution is very similar to me. Style-wise, I think it hits all of the marks. The look is just enough outside of the norm that it retains some of the traditional DNA of Nike silhouettes, but it all feels really different because of like the unfinished edges, the odd colors, and exposed Nike grind. From Virgil to Kanye and others, the appeal of the unfinished design is having its moment right now, and I feel like the Space Hippie team tapped into that ethos with these silhouettes and really just nailed it in my opinion. On the philosophical and moral ground of the Space Hippie collection though, I know a lot of talk has been focused on the trash aspect of the sneaker, but I think it has another angle, and that's money. Based on the makeup of these sneakers, Nike isn't really spending money on materials to make them. They're literally using scraps and materials they were going to throw away and putting them into new products and selling them. That's pretty incredible. In addition to building a shoe that is using recycled materials and that utilizes low waste, this team was able to essentially save Nike the cost of buying new materials. I know this isn't necessarily a one-to-one comparison, but this, in my mind, is like Apple selling refurbished iPhones. They don't have to source the parts to make a totally new phone. They can take bits from here, leftover parts from this broken phone, and shine them up to make them look nice and sell it back to the customer. This is essentially what we're getting with this Space Hippie. Imagine taking that to a larger scale, Nike being able to take all of their waste produce from making products and recycle them back into new pairs of shoes. In addition to that, they're taking recycled plastic bottles and spinning that into yarns that can be used as products as well, that would essentially allow Nike to not only divert tons and tons of waste product from initially hitting a landfill, and they would also flat out start profiting off of things that they probably would have had to pay for to throw away. And that is insane. That is the secret of the Space Hippie. Yes, it looks great and has a very nice sustainability angle, but if Nike can get it to scale, it can also be a nice bump to the bottom line. So for those looking to get a pair of these in hand, the Space Hippie collection, all 4 pairs are scheduled to release this summer. Of the 4 pairs, this one, the 01, is definitely my favorite, but the 03 is a very close second. There's something about having that fast fit system exposed that looks really dope to me. Pricing wise, the 03 is $180, the 02 is $150, the 01 is $130, and so is the women's 04. And yeah, I think that's it. So sustainability, it isn't like a pretty or cool topic to discuss. And Nike's actually pushing that envelope with this line. They're making sustainability a topic that cool kids and sneakerheads talk about. And that is really the definition of a space hippie in my mind, if I've ever seen one. All right, guys, I'm Jacques Slade. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.